These are 5 habits for you to build unshakable confidence. This is coming from the perspective of someone who was not confident his whole life and had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations to finally discover methods and tricks that made him confident. So I'm not here to act like I'm some guru. These are the things that have helped me, and I'm sure they will help you as well. Now, for me personally, the biggest issue that I had was that there was this voice in the back of my head, and no matter what I would do, this voice would always try to convince me that I'm not capable of doing it. So for example, if I'm really socially awkward and I go out to a party or an event and I want to meet people, this voice is telling me, you don't know what to say, you're not interesting, these people are way too attractive, you're really awkward, you shouldn't talk to them, you should go back home. And the entire time I'm fighting this urge, should I do it, should I talk to someone, should I be here, oh my god, what's happening? I didn't realize that the way I was talking to myself had such a big impact on my day-to-day life, because I was talking to myself very negatively. If you just took all of my thoughts and you put it on a piece of paper, all of the thoughts would be negative. It wasn't until I met my coach who taught me something very, very important. He said, Yasser, if you had a child and that child was going through the exact same problems and challenges that you're going through now, what would you tell that child to make them feel better? Would it be what your mind is telling yourself now? When you look at that transcript, is that what you would say? And of course you wouldn't. So he recommended, why don't you treat yourself the same way you would treat a child? Why don't you talk to yourself the same way you would encourage someone else? Now, okay, conceptually this is easy to know, just be positive and not be too hard on yourself, but how does this work? Because I have tried doing the affirmations, I have tried telling myself, you're amazing, it doesn't work. That's when I discovered an amazing book by Dr. Shad Helmstetter, and I would highly recommend you read it. Dr. Shad says our self-talk determines how we feel about ourselves and how we operate in the world. And a lot of times, our self-talk is not conscious but subconscious. We don't even know we're doing it. And it's shaped by when we were growing up, the people we were around, the messages we were receiving. 70% of the messages that we receive, or 70% of the thoughts that we have on a daily basis, are negative. So if we operate from that point of view, of course we're not going to be our most confident self. So one of the things he recommended was to listen to affirmations, but don't listen to them consciously. Because if you listen to them consciously, your brain will start fighting with them. You're rich, you're amazing, you're awesome, you're great. When I listen to these things, my mind is thinking, oh, this is BS. I know it's not true. I shouldn't listen to it. But Dr. Shad says you want to listen to these when you're not paying attention. So your conscious mind is occupied doing something else, and all of these affirmations are going into your subconscious. You won't realize, but over time, they start setting into your brain, and they start to become your default beliefs, because beliefs are just repeated thoughts. Whatever you hear, whatever is repeated around you will eventually become a belief. So subconsciously, these affirmations sit in your brain. Over time, they just become the dominant belief. I started using his app. It's called Self-Talk Plus for about a month or so, and I could start to feel the difference. And I couldn't really believe it because I was very anti-affirmation this whole time. So the self-talk you have is going to have a huge impact on the confidence that you're able to project and feel on a day-to-day basis. Number 2 is, how much evidence do you have to believe that you are a confident individual? What is confidence? My definition of confidence is, what is the likelihood that I think I'm going to do something? So if I say, I am confident that I can lift 225 on the bench. I've never done it before. I can't even lift anywhere close to that. Do I have confidence that I'm going to do that? Of course not, because I don't have the evidence to do that. So one of the things that helped me was to go out into the world, develop the skill set that will give me evidence that I'm able to do something. Case in point, I was always a very socially anxious person. I didn't think I could do anything with my life, let alone public speaking. But when I went to my first Toastmasters meeting, when I started working with my coach, when I started doing presentations, I remember that feeling. I noticed I got better at something. I noticed my eye contact was improving. I noticed that I was not anxious as much as I used to be. And every single week that I did public speaking, I was building this bank of evidence. I was building proof for myself that I'm improving at something. And when you have proof, you now have evidence to believe something. Because if I asked you right now, can you tie your shoelaces? You would say, yeah, of course I can tie my shoelaces. You wouldn't even think about it because you have so much evidence, because you've done it so many times. But if I asked you, can you solve a Rubik's Cube in 30 seconds? Maybe you can, maybe you can't, because you've never done it before. So in order to feel confident, you also have to be competent. And in order to be competent, you also must have a bank of evidence. So whatever you're afraid of, whatever you think you can't do, go find who can help you. For me, I didn't know how to do public speaking. I went to coaches and they taught me to do public speaking. I didn't know how to be funny, so I went to a stand-up comedy coach and I learned from them. So if you think about your confidence as skills that are waiting to be developed, you don't feel this sense of identity associated with it. I am not a confident person. Rather, you can say, I just haven't learned this skill of XYZ. Number 3, uncertainty. A big part of my lack of confidence came from not knowing what is going to happen. I remember when I was still dating, I would always think before going out to the date, oh, will they like me? Am I good looking? Am I going to say the right thing? What stories will I tell them? How will I impress them? I'm constantly thinking of what might happen, what might not happen. This lingering uncertainty would make me feel very afraid and less confident. Because we as human beings, when we just know the end outcome of something, even if it is not a favorable outcome, we can prepare ourselves and we feel a little easy about the situation. So for example, if you are going in for a job interview, now you're thinking, oh, will I get the job? Will I not get the job? Will I do well? Will I not do well? There's a lot of uncertainty. But if before going into the job interview, someone in the company called you and said, hey, just so you know, we've already hired someone. No matter what you do, you're not going to get hired for the job. In fact, the person who's hiring for the job is the worst interviewer ever. He's not even going to be listening to everything you say. So just go in with those expectations. So even though you know the end outcome and it is not a favorable outcome, it's not going to be as anxiety provoking as opposed to if you just didn't know what was going to happen. So if we don't know what's going to happen, if there's a lot of uncertainty, that creates a lot of fear, that creates lack of confidence. So your question is, how can I bridge the gap between me feeling a lot of uncertainty and me feeling more certainty? Some things you can do is prepare. If you're going in for a job interview, say those answers out loud. Make a list of everything you could get asked. If you're about to speak on stage, rehearse it out loud. Plan your slides. Say the entire thing start to finish. Because when you say it out loud so many times, you've already seen yourself performing. You've already gotten the evidence that you know your material. You watch yourself back and you know you sound pretty good. All of these things reduce the amount of uncertainty you feel. And the lower the uncertainty, the higher the confidence. Number 4, this is arguably one of the biggest ones that I struggled with, especially when it came to business. It was imposter syndrome. The feeling that whatever I'm doing is not enough, or it's not good enough, or I am faking it, that other people will find out I'm actually fake. Because you keep comparing yourself to other people. I'm not as confident as this person, or I don't have the job title this person has. I clearly can't accomplish what they can. And these lingering thoughts will really hold you back from your true potential. So one of the things that I learned to do, and this was so powerful, I took a piece of paper and I wrote down every single thought that I get throughout the day, throughout the week, that does not help me towards my goal. So for example, when I started, my inner dialogue was telling me, hey, you can't charge a lot of money. You should just charge $15, $20 an hour. That's what you're worth. You can't work with high-level VPs and CEOs. You don't have that kind of experience. You're not a VP. How can you help these people? Or you can't start a YouTube channel. You can talk in front of millions of people. That's not you. All of these thoughts I would write down. And then the next day, I would just look at all of those thoughts and I would tick which one I had that day. Like, okay, I had this thought, I had that thought, I had that thought. The following day, I would do the same thing. I had this thought, this thought, this thought, this thought. What would start to happen? As I began to manage and oversee these thoughts on a day-to-day basis, they became very predictable. I knew what thoughts I was going to think up. I knew on what occasion I would think of what thought. And I knew how my mind would work. And then I started thinking of all of these thoughts not as myself, not as the truth, but this entity, this person in my mind whose sole job is to protect me and to sabotage my full potential. Their job is, hey, if you don't leave the house, if you stay in your room the whole day, you are perfectly safe. And that's where I want to keep you. So now I recognize, okay, this person's job is to sabotage me. So all of these thoughts are not from me. All of these thoughts are from this person in my brain. And I name my person Bob. So every time I would get a thought saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't charge that much, I just say, oh, it's Bob trying to do that thing again. Bob is trying to sabotage me again. And when you have this distinction between you and this internal person, you can recognize it. A lot like when you see a magician and they're trying to trick you into something, but you're trying to figure out, oh, okay, I've seen this trick before. I know what they do. I'm not going to fall for that. I do the same thing with my thoughts. The thoughts don't go away. They come every single day, but I recognize them. Oh, Bob is trying to do that thing again. Every time I'm stepping on stage, or every time a new client wants to work with me, these thoughts keep coming back, and that's okay. Eventually, the thoughts won't go away, but the power they have on you will go away. You won't respond to them anymore, and that way, your imposter syndrome will decrease significantly, and your confidence will be sky high. So you and your negative thoughts, two different people. And the fifth thing that helped me the most was something I learned from tennis player Novak Djokovic. And he is someone who talks a lot about visualization. He talks about the mental aspect of the game. When Novak was coming up in tennis, the people who rule tennis, you had Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. These two people were just, when it came to tennis, they were dominating tennis. And when Nadal was coming up, he was so far in the rankings, but he would say things like, I'm going to be better than them. I'm going to be number one in the world. Even though at that time, he did not have any evidence. So you might ask, well, if I don't have the evidence, well, how will I believe it? This is where the missing ingredient of faith comes in. You have to have the faith that you are able to accomplish something. You can believe you can't do something, or you can believe you can do something, and both of them take pretty much the same effort. One of them might get you to your goal, the other one for sure will not. So what I do is, whenever I'm thinking of a goal, I try to 10x that goal, and I try to be unreasonable in my optimism. So let's say if I want to make $1 million, right? And I haven't made $1 million yet, but let's say if I want to make $1 million, I will say, I will make $10 million. Not $1 million, but $10 million. Because I know $1 million I still know I can achieve, but 10 million, my mind starts to get those negative thoughts. Oh, that's a lot of money. How can you do that? You've never done that before. So when you select a goal that's way out of your comfort zone, all of a sudden what starts to happen, your mind starts to work in different ways to figure out how that can happen. So here's an example for a person trying to get more money in their career, okay? Great book on this, by the way, called 10X or 2X is Easier Than 10X by Benjamin Hardy. It talks about this concept in more detail. Let's say you have a job that pays you $40,000 and you want to become rich. That is your goal, right? So your strategy is, I'm going to work really hard at my job. I'm going to get a promotion. That's your strategy. But if you were to get a promotion, you might get a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 salary, but that's not going to make you rich. That's not going to put a big dent in your goals. It's just going to marginally get you up there. But if you change your goal from I want to get a promotion or I want to make $100,000 and you said I want to make $1 million this year, what's going to happen is your mind will eliminate 90% of the things you're doing every day because those do not get you to your end goal. Because you know getting a promotion will not make you $1 million. You know switching to a new job is not going to get you $1 million. So now your mind will start to brainstorm, hey, do I need to start a business? Do I need to partner with someone who's making more money? Do I need to join a company that pays higher commission? It will start thinking in ways that get you to your end goal. So having faith in your ability past what you think is possible is crucial, because everyone who has ever achieved a goal has first had faith that they are able to achieve it when they had no evidence. You look at Serena Williams and Venus Williams, they came from nothing. And their dad had faith that they would become number one in tennis. And they did, all because he had faith. Even though he had no evidence, he had the faith. So if you want to be confident, believe whatever task you are pursuing, whether it's a career task, whether it's in your dating life, your personal life, set goals that are way higher than what you think you're comfortable with. And I guarantee you, in enough time, if you put in the effort and you stay consistent, you will get there. Now, these were the 5 habits that you can use to develop unshakable confidence. And if you want to become an articulate speaker, go check out this video next.